Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review. Tim Hecker and Daniel Lopatin, Instrumental Tourist. Tim Hecker and Daniel Lopatin, aka 1-0-Tricks Point Never, are both relatively successful musicians when it comes to the genres of experimental music, ambient music, drone. With projects like Ford and Lopatin and Aiden Baker and Tim Hecker under their belts, surely collaborating is not brand new territory for them. However, in the case of this collaboration, Instrumental Tourist, the music here should prove to be especially interesting because at this moment in time, Hecker and Lopatin are putting out some of the best music of their respective careers. When I came into this, I was basically expecting some really gripping combinations of ideas and influences to kind of collide and possibly create something altogether new. However, I do have to say that if you already are familiar with the music these guys have made individually, then what is on this album most likely will not be a surprise. And in terms of weaknesses, I gotta say the execution on this album, or the execution of the music on this album, didn't really bring the emotional explosion I was kind of hoping it would. This album kind of churns out one weekly improvised electronic piece after another with very little direction or purpose. A lot of what occurs on this LP kind of meanders, and in a really unrewarding way. Despite not having the very clear and straightforward patterns that is usually in pop or rock music, I typically find Hecker's pieces to be pretty sharp, pointed, kind of have a clear path to them. And as far as Daniel's work goes, especially with Returnal, I have found his music to just be really kind of soothing. I get a mix of those two worlds together on this LP, and sometimes it feels great, sometimes not so much. The track Vaccination for Thomas Mann is this song that I feel like really is kind of coming from that Daniel side of things. It just circles around and around and around this really drab set of chords. And they're played out with this really cheesy vocal effect on the synths. It feels like a really bad synthesizer preset. Some of the musical embellishments toward the end of the track sound great. I do like how the song grows and gets thicker and kind of becomes warm and enveloping, but I'm just being surrounded in this sound that I don't really think is pleasing at all to listen to. I actually feel the same way about the track Ritual Consumption too. And the song Whole Earth Tascam, maybe my least favorite track on this entire LP, has these pretty interesting cycling tones that really do feel like something I could hear Tim Hecker creating, but over that, like I said earlier, weak musical synth improvs that sound kind of silly. And the song Intrusions totally just caught me off guard as being just especially ham-handed and just kind of thrown together. I'm kind of hearing these jutting shots of distortion popping in and out. It's as if Hecker or Daniel is wiggling a 1/4-inch jack in and out of a broken amplifier. I like some of the synthesizer beds in the track, and I do like that the track gets kind of pretty toward the end, but still it just kind of gets off to a start that has me very uninterested in what the song is eventually going to bring. And those are kind of the low points for me on this album. The rest of what's on here kind of moves from moderate to great, though I will say much of what is on this LP is pretty indulgent, glitchy. I think the only smoother track on this album that really kind of stopped me in my tracks was Gray Geisha. The song is filled with these layers of synthesizers that feel glossy, futuristic, like I could float on them. And then there are these pan flute melodies, and the pan flute, a lot like other sounds on this LP, sound like they're kind of like a synthesizer preset, but still the reverb they're soaked in and just the texture of them in general feels pretty nice. It's an enchanting song. However, the other side of this LP, moving away from that smoothness, are tracks that have Daniel Lopatin's trademark synths combined with Tim Hecker's just penchant for dirtiness, filth, distortion, static. You're basically getting moments of Returnal mixed with that apocalyptic feel of rave death. Like the song Uptown Psychedelia, the first track off of this LP and maybe my favorite, kind of feels like a long-lost radio transmission gasping on its last breath. The song has these multiple phases of deterioration, and the synthesizers that are floating in between this distortion, this static, actually sound pretty beautiful, and they really lighten the load of the track a little bit. The synthesizers are just beautiful on this track, and they kind of flutter here and there, and it sounds like there's kind of like a synthesized acoustic guitar that shoots up all over the mix as well, that adds a nice texture. And the song Scene from a French Zoo feels as if Daniel is collaborating with Tim Hecker in a moment of harmony in Ultraviolet, a really hauntingly beautiful track that is chilling and quiet as well. You know, overall this album is just kind of all over the place stylistically, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if I didn't also feel like it was kind of all over the place quality-wise as well. I can't help but feel like a lot of the tunes, if you could even call them that, because for the most part they feel like motifs, I can't help but feel like they're kind of thrown together or not really all that well groomed or developed. Some songs like Uptown Psychedelia do feel like they got a bit more attention, while others fall a little short or even very short. But still, the upside of this LP is that it truly does feel like a collaboration. If you're familiar with the work of Daniel and Tim already, there are tracks on here where it really kind of feels like an even collaboration, an even combination of both of their styles. There are songs where Tim's influence feels a little bit more prevalent and vice versa. They definitely explore multiple sides of their musical personas and kind of connect them in weird ways like Lego blocks. I'm kind of feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this LP. If you have given it a listen, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And what should I review next? Hecker, Lopatin, Instrumental Tourist, Forever.